Welcome back to another Season Pass pregame show. I'm Connor Fuxa.
I'm Brandon McVay.
And I'm Bronwyn Liber.
Now first, this past week, our Blue Hawks faced off against Little Elm in a big bounce-back week. Bronwyn, can you tell me about that game?
Yeah, of course. We knew going in it was going to be an interesting game to say the least, and the Blue Hawks proved to come out strong. They led the game in defense and offense and were able to hold them to 0 points, not only at the half, but during the entire game, which is, I think, a huge improvement we've seen from our defense, not only during this game, but through the entire season.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, it was kind of a boring game to watch, but that means our Blue Hawks did their job. We got up early, got that 21-point lead in the first half, and then we held on to it. Our defense showed up for the first time. We've been talking about how we needed to hold someone under 30 points. We didn't just do that. We held them to 0 points. So it was a great defensive showing. In our offense, yes, while it might have been a boring second half, we kind of wanted more points on the board, maybe get like 40 points in this game, in a game we thought our offense could do better. It still was a good game. We controlled the clock well, and then we won the game.
A big thing in the second half that I saw with our offense is it looked like they got a little conservative there, but we did see big performances from Victor and Wagner, as we've seen all season from the big three of Victor, Matt, and Kevin. They were able to go out there in the first half, establish the lead, and held on to it. And then also, I talked about last pregame show how we needed someone to step up on the defensive side, and we saw Nick Butler step up with 3 interceptions in that game.
And talking on that, I know, Connor, you picked Matt Wagner for your play of the game last week, and I picked Victor Chuanuma, and honestly, I think they both showed out, and there's a reason we did so well on the offensive side for this game.
No, I think Matt definitely won. I don't know about y'all, but I think Matt, 9 catches, 83 yards, and touchdown, and the numbers don't even show the whole story. He had great job moving the chains. He had great big plays on third down that really helped this offense get those 21 points in the first half. But I think we got to mention, like you said, the defense finally stepping up, getting 5 turnovers on the game. We talked about how we wanted to win the turnover battle and how that would decide the game. It definitely did. 5 turnovers to 1 made that scoreboard read 21-0. But now I think we got to move on to this week's game. It is a huge game with playoff implications against McKinney. So, Brandon, what can you tell me about this McKinney team?
This McKinney offense is powerful with Celdrick Luster, who we've seen before last year at Liberty. He transferred over to McKinney, and then their 5-star running back, who's only a junior. They have a lot of star power in this offense, and we've seen them put up a bunch of points and getting a close loss to Allen, only losing by 3.
No, Celdrick Luster is definitely scary. We've seen him before. Last time we played him, which was last year when he was on Liberty, he put up 386 total yards and 4 total touchdowns against us. And he has not slowed down this year, transferring over to McKinney in a big win in the loss to Allen. He still had over 200 total yards, 2 touchdowns against a tough team that we were only able to put 14 points up against. They put up 28. But I think another name we have to mention is got to be Brian Jackson, that running back. Depending on what site you look at, 4-star running back, 5-star running back, he's got offers from the likes of Alabama, Texas A&M. This running back is going to be hard for our defense to stop.
And it's not that he will overpower you or outrun you. The thing is that his ball carrier vision is elite. As we've seen in his film, he can find the holes and explode through them whenever they open, and he's very patient in the backfield.
Yeah, and I mean, he's had an amazing year this year, too. 163 attempts for over 1,000 yards and 16 touchdowns already. He has been beasting out.
Oh, for sure. And however, while McKinney's offense is extremely strong and they have the likes of those incredible players, what's really their weakness is their defense, which is something Rock Hill's really going to have to look to push through. We saw they have allowed so many points in all their games, especially the Braswell game, which we'll talk about later, as that's a comparison game. And it's just going to have to be a way for our offense to continue to show out and find the creeks if they want this to be a competitive game.
Yeah, and I think this game is actually going to be a lot closer than a lot of people say. A lot of people are thinking McKinney's got this game in the bag, but and we talk about those comparison games. We beat Braswell 50-49 homecoming night, that big game winner, but they did not handle Braswell well either. They won 60-51. They let Braswell score 51, put up 675 yards against McKinney's defense. This defense of McKinney is weak, and if our offense can show up like they did in the first half against Little Elm, or like we saw them do against Braswell, or like we saw them do against Timber Creek earlier in the season, this could be a really close game.
And I think a big thing, game planning wise, is we've seen Luster before. We've played him before, and yes, he did dominate us, but we can make adjustments on how we played him last season to this season to hopefully contain them from running out of the pocket and then making deep throws.
Dan, I mean, this is a team like you're talking about. We've seen Luster before. They haven't seen our team. We've never played McKinney before. Kevin Sperry still doesn't have a lot of film for teams to look at and try and game plan against. He comes out, he shows out every single game, and if he can have a big game tonight like he's had in previous games, it's going to be hard for McKinney's defense to do anything against him. But Now, I think we got to move on to our pick'em this week. Last week, we actually did pretty great. I mean, we did the over-under first half points, and we said over-under 21. It ended at 21, so we really couldn't do anything there. But we won the turnover prop, and then, I mean, like I said, I think Matt won the MVP. But, I mean, I'm a little biased there.
Debatable.
I think a big thing this week we've talked about is shutting down the rushing offense of McKinney. So the first prop we got to look at, do you think we can hold them under 200 yards rushing?
I think it's going to be a very tough call with Luster and their 5-star running back having to stop both them and keep them pretty much, if they split carries on both, keeping one of them under 100 yards. I think that's a very tough call, but I think we are able to stop them. I think that's going to be a big emphasis this week in practice, being able to fill gaps correctly and make open field tackles, and I think we make the adjustments necessary, and that's a big reason why we win this game.
Yeah, no, I'm the same thing. I'm really tossed up. It's going to be really close. Like on the season, we give up 195 rushing yards per game, so it's right at that 200 prop. And we know not only Jackson is a beast, but Luster does great with his legs as well. But I'm going to say yes. I think our defensive coordinator is going to do a great job of game planning. We know they're a rushing offense. We know they want to run the ball, so we need to force them to throw. Throw some QB spies, throw some contains on Luster, make sure he can't get outside the pocket, and then throw more blitzes in at Jackson to try and stop the run and see if we can hold them under. And I think it's going to be a big game plan this week. We know how big this game is, and we're going to force them to throw.
I mean, unfortunately, looking at McKinney's averages of around 200, I'm going to have to go no on this one. Well, I think our defense has done an incredible job this season, and obviously it's continuously gotten better, and I think they're going to have great stops, and that's really going to be the deciding factor for this game. I think it's just going to be one of those games where it's continuously up the floor, and that's going to surpass 200.
I think a big important thing to mention that you mentioned is we're going to have to mix up looks. A lot of the beginning of the season we had a 3-man front, and now ever since the season's been going we've been disguising that more with a 4 or 3. I think we have to fill the box, show a lot of blitzes, get Luster to feel a little more uncomfortable, make some throws that are irresponsible and that cause turnovers, and just mix up his looks and make him feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, but now we talked about what our defense has to do. We got to shut down that run game if we want a chance. We got to talk about what our offense has got to do. And I think the prop this week, over under 37.5 points, so 38 points for the team. We've done it twice this season. We did it in the win over Braswell when we scored 50. We did it in the win over Keller Timber Creek when we scored 42. So when we've hit this prop, we've won games. We need this offense to show up big in what's going to be probably just a shootout game.
I think we go under that. I don't see this game necessarily being a shootout game like both of Rock Hill and McKinney's game has been with Braswell. I think both our defense are stronger than Braswell's, so I don't see it being just a massive shootout game. So I do see us being under that, but I also see our defense taking a step forward and holding McKinney to a low amount of points as well.
Again, I mean, it's a great prop. It could go either way, but I'm going to have to go over on this one. I'm going to have to go against you again. I'm going to go back and forth. But I think we've seen what these offenses can do against weaker defenses. And yes, I think our defense has definitely stepped up. We got our first shutout of the season last week. We haven't seen McKinney being able to really hold teams to low amount of points, especially like against Braswell where they let them score 51. And we have a better offense than Braswell, in my opinion. So I think we can get to at least that 42 mark, get 6 touchdowns. I think it's going to be a shootout, and I say we get over.
I think we're going to get under. I mean, I kind of agree with Brendan on this one. I think our defense has gotten better, and I think we'll definitely have a high-scoring game, higher than most people expect. But looking at it, while McKinney has allowed for very high-scoring games, I don't see it getting on there. I think both defenses are going to know it's going to come down to them, and they're going to have to step up, and they're really going to get those stops. And it's going to be a close game, but I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as we're predicting. I
think a big thing is that what we talked about, one of the coaches about, is it's getting later on in the season. All the boys out there are battered and bruised, and it's pretty much going to come down to a game of who can persevere more, who can get that out of their mind, and who can really push through and make the right plays and make the adjustments.
It's going to be a game of whoever has the least mess ups. Like, it's going to come down to on the field who wants it more, who's going to fight for it, and who's going to stick to the little things, be bought in, and honestly want the playoff spot more.
And I think a big thing that's going to come with that is going to be turnovers. We talked about it last week. We talked about it like every single week. Turnovers. Right now we've given away the ball 10 times. We've gotten it 8 times. But last week was a great bounce back week for turnovers. That really affects the scoreboard. If we can get some turnovers, get some short field for our offense, we're going to score more. But on the other end, if they can force some turnovers and get some great field position, the game can swing either way. But now, I think it's time we look at the MVP. We've got a lot better. At the beginning of the season, we kept messing up. We kept missing it somehow. But now, towards the end of the season, we finally started figuring out who those MVP players are for us. So, Brendan, who do you got this week?
I'm going to go with a person I've said a lot this season. That's Victor. I think the running lanes are going to be there, as always. And I feel like with the injuries we've seen with Keani and a lot of new faces like Brody and Amar, I think that Victor we go more to Victor in the passing game, more screens as we've seen throughout the year. I think he gets really involved in the receiving game this week, and he finds the end zone and becomes player of the week.
I think I'm going to have to stick with the offense as we talk about. Going to be like maybe a shootout. And I'm going to go with Kevin Sperry, our quarterback. And I mean, looking at it against that Timber Creek game when we scored 42, who was the MVP? It was Kevin.
Yeah.
Who was the MVP of that Braswell game? It was Kevin. Those big shootout games, the games when the offense is moving the ball and scoring a lot, Kevin is our MVP. I mean, on the season, he's done it both with his arm and with his legs. He's got over 1,000 yards passing, and he's got nearly 500 yards rushing. He does great on both sides of it, and since we've seen McKinney's defense is weaker, I think he's going to lead this offense and get maybe 4 or 5 total touchdowns between his legs and his arms.
And this is a big game for Kevin, a really big game in general. Let's see how he can handle those nerves as being our first-year quarterback, and let's see how much he's grown this season, and hopefully he can show out like you said.
The pressure on the game is going to be insane. That's going to have to go for all of our players, especially a lot of them being their first year on varsity and all of that. And even the coaching staff, it's going to be a game of who can control their nerves. Now, for my personal MVP, I'm going to have to go with Jonah Bowman. I'm taking the defense. I know we just talked a lot on how the offense is going to have a strong game and how it's really a good, strong offense versus strong offense, but I'm taking that defensive player. We saw Jonah have 2 solo tackles last week, and overall he's had a great game, great season, and I think he's really going to take this as an opportunity to step up as a junior, as a previous coming back varsity member, and be like, guys, we need this game. After barely missing playoffs by 1 game last year, he's going to want this game. He's going to have that fight in him, and I think he's really going to want to take over and lead the defense to get those stops and get those turnovers they need to truly keep it to a low-scoring game and win it.
I mean, I think it's definitely due. We've said defensive players, we've said Casey Ajayi, we've said Jonah Bowman multiple times this year, and we have not been able to hit it. If there's any game we need someone to step up and needs our anchor of the defense and Jonah Bowman to step up, it's this one. Mm-hmm. But for now, I think that's all the time we have for this week's pregame show. I'm Connor Fuxa.
I'm Brandon McVay.
And I'm Bronwyn Liber. Let's go Blue Hawks.